Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 116. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us for this Friday show. Dave, hopefully we'll be the best thing about Pittsburgh sports this week. It's a low bar with the Penguins, that mess of a season, and we got the answer to the age-old question, who's on first? It's not Will Craig.
Holy moly.
Been a rough week for Pittsburgh fans.
Yeah, from starting with the turnover by Jerry the couple of games ago in the playoffs, and then obviously what happened in Game 6 there, and then if you aren't depressed enough after that game was over, you could have turned over to the NFL Network, which I did, and watched the second half of the Steelers wild card playoff loss to the Cleveland Browns. Some things just suck you in, and you can't get away from. And then, like you said, you put a final stamp on it. That play that happened in that game yesterday between the Pirates and the Cubs, man, it makes the bad news Bears look like the good news Bears, I guess. I mean, that was a comedy of errors there. So, yeah, look, we better come up with some positive stuff on today's show, right? To have people feeling good about Pittsburgh sports on this holiday, or else we might have a few people jumping out some windows.
We'll do our best. Yeah, not to make this Pirates Depot, but I've never seen a play like that at any level. Have you?
No, I mean, I'm maybe something close to it over the years. I was around when the Earth was still cooling, so I've seen a lot of crazy stuff and all like that. But man, and the umpire making it was not supposed to give the safe sign until what had been determined with the batter had happened either. So that's just one other thing that just adds. And that's something that you kind of see in T-ball.
Yeah.
So you take that one still shot when they're all around home plate there and the ball's in there and try to explain that to somebody, and they'll lock you up.
No, yeah, I don't think he can do it. So craziness there, but we'll try to get things on track here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. No craziness there, but of course it is the offseason for them. Some good news off the bat for you guys, though it's not unexpected, but now official, signed, sealed, delivered. Steelers have signed 2 more draft picks. That is first-round pick Najee Harris and second-round pick Pat Freiermuth. Harris is still fully guaranteed. Kind of a little bit of discussion about would it be fully guaranteed or not based on where his slot was, kind of right on that cusp, right on that edge, but fully guaranteed deal for Najee Harris and Pat Freiermuth inked as well. So the only remaining, as of this recording, draft pick that has not been signed is third-round pick Kendrick Green.
Yeah, and it could have gone either way with Najee, as we talked about. The only real thing that would have held up that deal from getting done, at any point, obviously it was going to get done at some point, but the only potential thing that possibly could have made it draw longer into the summer was whether or not there was hard discussions about how much being fully guaranteed there. And as I stated, I think on a show or two ago, I really expected Najee's side to push hard for that, and why wouldn't he? That's what you're supposed to do. Push hard for the full guarantees. Even though he was kind of on that line, I think for too long, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's this year as well. Every first rounder is going to have a fully guaranteed contract before too long, and then they'll start slowly creeping into the second round as well there. So fully guaranteed for Najee Harris. He's signed, sealed, and delivered. The actual signing bonus amount, according to Joel Corey, talked to him this morning, $6.949048 was the actual signing bonus amount on him. And like you said, Pat Freiermuth signed, sealed, and delivered, and that leaves Kendrick Green. Somebody asked me on Twitter this morning what I suppose the holdup is on him. It could just be something as logistics, man. It could be the agent's busy and maybe has a lot of clients having to work through. Because really there's nothing to negotiate when it comes to Kendrick Green's contract where he was drafted there. So have no fear, that one will get done. I'm surprised it's not done. Yes, I'm surprised it's not done yet, but that doesn't mean a damn thing. I mean, it's just it's all a matter of process, and that will get done. And by this same time next week, everybody should be signed, sealed, and delivered.
Sure. It looks like Kendrick Green represented by Clarity Sports International. So, yeah, maybe they have a bigger clientele and just logistically probably the reason there. With Harrison fully guaranteed, I don't know the answer to this, so I'm asking it earnestly. What does that mean for any potential offsets? Does that tell you anything about what the offsets
you would still have to look at the offsets, I think.
We don't know that information, right?
Yeah, we don't know that, and really that's the kind of stuff that comes into play. Worst case scenario,
right,
sure. The guy is cut or along those lines there. I would imagine the Steelers usually like to protect themselves a little bit there. And, probably a trade-off in some of that would be that, if he is cut and does sign with another team, that the language in there would alleviate, the Steelers from whatever portion he would get from another team there. I mean, that's just how they roll generally, and especially with Najee getting the fully guaranteed contract, I would expect him to do something there. But no, I haven't gone that deep to have the language inspected that way. And here's the hope, and why don't? Sure. Here's the hope, and he plays out his 4 years, and obviously that contract of his comes with a fifth-year option year as well. So a few years from now on top of it. So that's where we're at right now with Najee Harris.
Gotcha. Yeah, if we're talking about offsets, that means something did not go well with the selection of Najee Harris. Dave, Steelers had their first organized team activities with the full squad, not just rookies, this week. I think those are wrapped up for this week. They'll start, I believe, next week and kind of flow into June. So we've heard a lot from players, especially a couple offensive linemen, Kevin Dotson, Zack Banner. A lot of discussion about, of course, new offensive line coach Adrian Clem, just, the total upheaval in terms of the personnel of this offensive line, the coordinator, the coaching staff, new head offensive line coach, new assistant offensive line coach, etc. Hearing obviously some really positive things about Adrian Clem. Some of the biggest ones include his intensity, the physicality, kind of the aggressive mentality he's bringing, and then also, as Kevin Dotson mentioned, the stance as well, talking about with the offensive tackles. Kevin Dotson said, quote, he's emphasized more definitely for the tackles more often doing three-point stance. Last year, Dotson, of course, did it the entire season, but he was basically the only Steelers lineman who had his hand in the ground. So I think we're going to see more of that across the entire offensive line in 2021.
Yeah, I don't think that's a huge surprise either, right? I mean,
no.
Especially with making more of a move to youth, obviously this time around, and I think that's one of the things that we kind of expected out of Clem, and with this younger offensive line moving forward here, and we'll see what kind of impact that has, and look, low man wins, right? And got to get this running game back going. It's just pretty much going more traditionalist more than anything there. I understand to some degree why guys like Villanueva and why that became sort of a thing with a few of those guys on the offensive line and all. But I think Clem just wants more of a structured type thing. Get back to some of the basics as well too. And look, offensive linemen anyway. If they played the position for any length of time, they're used to that kind of stuff going through the ranks of high school and college as well.
Right. Obviously, there's a benefit to playing with your hand down. I think you can fire off the ball better. There's probably a more aggressive mentality when you're run blocking from a three-point stance. I don't think it's the cure-all. Of course, it's not going to magically alone transform this team into a good run blocking unit. They were a decent run blocking unit for the first 4 or 5 weeks of last season, and they were in the same stances as they were when the run game was easily the worst in football. But I do think it kind of just represents the overall mentality of this team. You do want to be careful of not having any run-pass tells with your stance. That was one benefit of always basically being in the same stance was from that aspect, defenses couldn't clue whether or not you were tipping your hand of a run or a pass play. But again, I think it just speaks to the overall mentality Clem wants to bring with just being a tougher team, a more physical team, and just winning the point of attack a lot more than they have really the last 2 seasons in the run game.
And look, we can try to paint, as positive as we possibly can here with the with the audio brush, if you will, and recapping kind of this stuff. And you have to get a little pumped up kind of hearing what you heard these last couple of days out of guys like Dotson and Zack Banner, just kind of reemphasizing what they view the mentality of this offensive line will be starting right away under Adrian Clem. A lot of what's the best word? Aggressiveness, I guess, is kind of the overarching theme when it comes to this. But it all sounds good this time of the off season, right? And it's supposed to. You're supposed to get fired up about things coming out of players' mouths and attitudes and all like that. And yeah, I really do expect this offensive line to have kind of a swagger, a bullyish, in your face, run you over type attitude there. But you would think all 32 teams in the NFL would want to have sort of that mentality as well too. So once again, it's exciting to listen to. It really gets you pumped up, especially coming off the last couple of seasons. The way the run blocking specifically has been with this offensive unit here, but make no mistake about it. We're not going to know about this team and this offensive line specifically until about 3 games into the 2021 season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it all sounds good right now, and that's all well and good, but it's the only thing that matters is production and getting better. But I thought it was interesting, and you're right. The mentality of an offensive line coach saying, be physical is being preached in 31 other, organizations across football. But it was interesting to hear Dotson specifically compare and contrast kind of, maybe the language that was used, the verbiage that was used between, former and previous offensive line coach Sean Surratt and Adrian Clem. Here's what Dotson said, quote, "Even the verbiage that he uses in meetings is way more aggressive. It's not just get the block. It's more like run through his face and like other stuff that I really can't say. He's using more aggressive terms, and I feel like that kind of pushes our mindset in that way." And so Surratt, I don't want to say he was a soft-spoken guy, but I think he was a little more reserved than, say, an Adrian Clem. And Clem, not this is to say all, but Clem, played in the NFL. He has 2 Super Bowl rings, so I think he kind of has that mentality of I know what it takes to win at this level, to be successful at this level, because I've been in the shoes that you guys are sitting in right now, talking about the players. So maybe those things help with the buy-in a little bit more, and maybe just the way that you frame and kind of just couch things can really resonate with these players.
I bet some of that verbiage is some things that we probably are not allowed to say.
That's what Dotson was basically saying. Yeah, some not safe for work content.
I'm used to using a lot of 4-letter words in my language. That's about the speed of my grammar, but I don't think a lot of those would be appropriate. Believe it or not, I think we have some dads and some moms that listen to this podcast along with their kids. Hi, kids. How are you? Uncle Dave here to take you through another Friday.
Sesame Street with Dave. This episode's been brought to you by.
Yeah, today's letter is beep. Where was I here? You see how easy you get me off track there.
Just the overall aggressive mindset.
Yeah. The aggressive mindset there. And look, this boils back. This is one thing that we've mentioned, I think, a time or two since Clem has been promoted. Played under Dante. How do you pronounce his last name?
Scarnecchia.
Scarnecchia. Yeah. That guy. Say what you will. One of the most revered offensive line coaches in the NFL. And when you look at those Patriots teams over the years, it wasn't pretty a lot of the times. Right. But it was effective and it got the job done. So, there in NFL circles, I think if you mention the name Dante Scarnecchia, People are going to have probably a lot of good things to say. I mean, definitely got a proven track record with all the years with the Patriots there, and Clem, of course, played for him. So you get a little generational kind of branch of that tree. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Look, there's a lot expected out of Clem in that unit right now, and and the biggest knock I think you hear on the outside, people looking on the outside looking in, whether it be Steelers analysts, national media analysts, two guys on a podcast like me and you, is there are question marks on this offensive line. I mean, you got a lot of inexperience there. Look, I am as fired up about seeing Kevin Dotson play in 2021 as probably anybody listening to this podcast. But he's played less than 400 snaps, and not all of them obviously on the left side. And I think one thing that he spoke on the other day was the fact that he's worked, most of his focus, this offseason is focusing on playing on the left side. I mean, this is a guy that played 55, I don't know, whatever games in college, all on the right side of the offensive line there. So the fact that he's going to be a true left guard and has got time to prepare to be a true left guard this year, I think is exciting. In that fact, we all agree that David Castro, one of the league's premier right guards for many years, wasn't himself last year. So what direction is he going to go in this year? Kendrick Green obviously is a rookie, and not only that, a rookie center that played 4 or 5 games at college at that position. So there's going to be, not only the typical, rookie growth and development issues that you go through and all with him, but, really kind of more of a new position on top of it. And then you have a guy like Zack Banner, bless his heart, has been around the NFL since 2017, 18, something like that.
Maybe even earlier than that. Yeah, 16, 17, I think.
But I mean, how many games has he actually started that you don't qualify an extra tackle eligible as qualifying as a start? Not many. And then Chukwuma Okorafor, who you want to talk about jury still being kind of out for the most part. Not only that, he's played predominantly on the right side for you, and now going over to the left side, a side he played in college as well too. So there are a lot of question marks, understandably, about this offensive line, and Clem's either going to get, it's going to be a pass or a fail grade, obviously when it comes to that. But, man, if he can turn this offensive line even into, I don't know, top 14, 15 offensive line, you got to take your hat off and hand it to him. And I think it will have meant a lot of positive things if he's able to get that unit to that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were more question marks along the Steelers' offensive line than there are any other position on the entire team. And the play of this offensive line will define this offense and probably by extension define how good this team is and how far they go if they make the playoffs and if they can finally win a playoff game. So I'm not saying they can't, but it's just a lot of unknown there. And we don't really have a good sense of how things are going to go. I'm sure the team doesn't even really know that exactly right now. They're trying to figure that stuff out. But you're right. There is more newness there and more changes there than any other area, which is probably warranted considering how poor things were, especially in the run game last season. But nonetheless, it's still just kind of a big prediction and projection.
And look, you go around the NFL and you can look at all the depth charts, and some teams might have a little bit better depth on the offensive line than others. But for the most part, in the salary cap era, you could probably grade the depth. But when it comes to the depth of the Steelers' current roster, where it sits right now, how would you grade their depth at, their first level depth, I guess, because you get past that. I mean, all the teams kind of look the same at that point. But how would you grade the Steelers' first level depth across the board, top to bottom?
I mean, it's okay, but there's a lot of unknowns there too, because it's a lot of new faces. It's Joe Haig, it's Rashad Coward, it's the return of B.J. Finney. I mean, we'll see how he looks after that disastrous 2020 season. So, I mean, that in itself is tough to judge as well, just because a lot of those backups either haven't played in Pittsburgh before or it's been a season in the case of B.J. Finney. So even then, it's tough to gauge it. But, I mean, it's adequate, I guess, versatile depth. They really wanted guys that could play a lot of spots, wear a lot of hats, which is kind of typical for the Steelers. So I guess, that's kind of the big selling point of the depth of this team.
Right, and I guess what I'm getting at, man, is you already have questions on that offensive line as it is. You can't. I mean, one of those guys goes down. Oh Lord, I mean, I no way whatsoever. I'm looking forward to Joe Haig playing considerable amount of snaps at either tackle spot.
Right.
I know you feel the same. BJ, I'm of all those guys, I am most. I guess optimistic about a guy like B.J. Finney just for the sheer fact that he looks better at guard,
Right. Well, he's also your backup center, though.
Right.
So, and even he's really a stopgap. If he has to start, half the season, if there was a long-term injury, in the case of Zack Banner last year, for example, let's say one of those guards go down, then you're going to be in real big trouble because Finney's, he can get you through a game or two, that's fine, but he's not going to make an impact in pass or run game over, a lengthy portion of the season.
Right.
So, yeah, big question mark there. As you mentioned, Kevin Dotson being more comfortable at left guard. And when it comes to Zack Banner, though, he has very, very few questions about this offensive line. He was very direct that if you want to criticize his team and this offensive line, go sign a contract. And he didn't really care about the outside noise, and certainly can appreciate that attitude. But Banner very confident in this group and confident in a core four. And it's a major year for a core four, final year of his rookie deal. That's a guy that could get paid handsomely if he has a good season. And I think they want to find out exactly what they have in Chuck Wilma core for.
Yeah, it is a big season for him. I think because what's the alternative here after the season goes? I mean, yeah, he would have to play. The fact of the matter is he's probably still likely out after 2021.
Even if he has a good year.
Well, I mean, if he has a good enough year, and I'm talking 16, 17 starts, obviously, and let's say, I don't know, top 15 left tackles in the NFL, that's going to get him paid by somebody.
Well, Steelers, they could afford it. They'll have the cap space next year.
Yeah, but they usually don't like to invest or have it in recent years in big money in left tackle positions.
Yeah, well, they paid Villanova. They just got him cheap because he was up against the wall with his restricted or exclusive rights, whatever he was at the time. They'll pay offensive linemen. They paid Pouncey, they paid the Castro, they paid Villanueva at a discount price. They're not afraid to give those guys contracts.
Well, what I'm getting, the longest history that they have right now is really interior linemen, though. Not so much tackles. When
what
was
did
the
Marcus
last?
Gilbert get?
It wasn't huge at the time, right? It was something like six million average or something like that. And remember too, he had kind of some strikes against him on top of it because of some missed games and yada yada. So he wasn't actually, I don't think, the picture of didn't have the brightest resume, if you will, come time that he got his deal.
Yeah, but they were willing to pay him. I understand it was a 5-year, $30.8 million contract, so it wasn't ginormous money. That was back in 2014 as well. But I think they have a good track record overall of paying quality offensive linemen.
Right. The thing is, and they should have some cap space and all like that. But look, we're way out. We're way out in front of this thing right now. You got to have the good season first, and he really does have to have a good season. For the Steelers in all facets on that left side, for this offense to be able to do what we expect them to do, or would expect them to be able to do if they want to make the playoffs this year as well too. It would. Let's just put it this way: it will be a great problem to have come late February if we're talking about, boy, are the Steelers going to be able to afford or to keep a core for?
Yeah, that is certainly a good problem to have. And I know that the lines have blurred between left tackle and right tackle because good pass rushers line up everywhere. TJ Watt's facing the right tackle every single week. But in terms of the payout, left tackles get paid. Right tackles don't get paid nearly as much as left tackles. That's kind of the old antiquated way. If you look at the offensive tackles making, I think, $14 million or more per year. 12 of the 14, I believe it is, are left tackles. Only 2 right tackles making more than $14 million per season. I think that's Jack Conklin and Lane Johnson. So there's a real good chance here for a core four to get paid, maybe not $14 million, but a lot more money at left tackle. And I think, honestly, Dave, again, lines are blurred, but I think he's I think we might see better results with him at left tackle because I think it's probably where he's most comfortable at, where he played in college. He's kind of been a swing tackle in Pittsburgh and played right tackle for 15 games last season. But I'm guessing he's probably more comfortable on the left side. And also, just because most teams, including Pittsburgh, are right hand dominant in their run game, I think that kind of hides a little bit of a core force lack of run blocking because his strength and punch and stuff like that have never been great. Probably not going to become much better, in this season. So I think having him on the left side hides and mitigates that average to below average run blocking with him.
Fair enough.
All right, so that was Kevin Dotson, Zack Banner. What else does Zack Banner have to say? He's always a good quote.
Rank the 5 that we think are going to be the 5 as far as how confident you are in their play will be in 2021.
Well, let's establish the 5. So working left to right, I'm going to assume this is the line we're going to roll with here. A core 4, Dotson. I'm going to say Kendrick Green beats out B.J. Finney, David Castro, and Zack Banner's at the 5.
Correct.
Okay, so in terms of confidence, I'll have the Castro narrowly edge out Kevin Dotson for the first spot just because of the Castro's track record. And I think he was dealing with injury last year. So the Castro 1, Dotson 2. From there, it gets pretty dicey.
You have to have Banner 3, right?
Yeah, probably Banner 3. But I think honestly at that point, because they're all sort of unproven in a lot of respects, Banner and Green haven't played a lot of football in general in a core for a new tackle spot. I mean, they can kind of put them in any order you want. But I guess I'll say Banner 3, core 4, and Kendrick Green 5.
All right, fair enough. I think that's probably how I would rank them. And I think that's how most people listening would rank them as well. Okay, but carry on.
To your point though, past the Castro, and even there's some question marks with him. Past him, there's a lot of just unknown. Even with Dotson second year, just full 16-game starter. So none of those guys you feel super confident about. I think it was this from Zack Banner and Kevin Dotson. Alex Highsmith.
Banner about his health, by the way, seems to be on. He's out there. They're sneaking him into some lines. It sounds like he's getting a rep or two. He talked about how many pass sets he's done and how out of a 3-point stance and equivalence to a game, and how he's kind of the Steelers training staff definitely knows what they're doing and kind of following along with the notes of Heath Miller and the rehab that he had several years ago. But we talk about some instances and they seem just like yesterday, and then you actually look at the year and you think, man, where has the time gone? On that. I mean, it seems so. I can vividly remember Heath Miller talking, at the start of OTAs about his knee rehab and writing that stuff up, and then, but at the same instance, it's like, man, where's the time gone? Because that just wasn't a few years ago there. But regardless, Zack Banner seems to be following that plan. That the plan seems to be still on track with him being ready for the start of training camp. He talked a lot about how there's going to be he's going to have to get more used to that brace, knee brace. So obviously going to be wearing a knee brace. Makes him feel, what do you say, robo brace or something like that. Was one of the comments that he made in there. So it just seems like, and look, he's chomping at the bit too to get back out there, and talked about how they have to pull the reins on him or the leash on him a couple of times. So I think as long as he just doesn't push this thing, he's going to be fine. I don't think there's any reason to think otherwise. And obviously his injury happened right at the start of the season there, so he's had the longest amount of time to get better. I wouldn't expect with him to have to start off on active PUP list at the start of training camp. Devon Bush, I think you could kind of wonder if Devon Bush might have to start off on at least active PUP, not meaning that he'll start the regular season on PUP, but just on a comfortability factor there. I mean, it was exciting to hear Zack Banner talk about his rehab and his thoughts on the offensive line and all things related to that. Is he the new leader on the offensive line? I think you could really, that's another kind of takeaway, I think, from both these young offensive linemen talking this past week here. I don't know what you thought about Kevin Dotson, man, but that kid sounds like he's been in the league 5 years already. Some of the things that he said. So, and we all know David Castro is really not the most vocal of guys. Not saying that he can't have leadership type qualities, but he's always been kind of the guy behind Foster and Marquise Pouncey when it comes to leadership on the offensive line. But I think Kevin Dotson said it best that by game 3 or 4 or whatever week he said, you'll probably be able to see who has stepped up to be the leader on the offensive line. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's kind of a tandem Banner, Dotson, and maybe even DeCastro type thing.
Yeah, I think that leadership just reveals itself, whenever there's a vacuum, which is kind of what's happening right now with the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line, with especially the retirement of Marquise Pouncey. But I think, honestly, the way the leadership's going to start is just by action, just by who's playing well, showing up to work, doing all those little things. And I think this group has to prove itself really, left to right, the entire group. And so I think that leadership will just come based off of who's playing well and just kind of put in that work so that they can play well.
Yeah, once again, this goes back to people probably say, boy, you guys sure are down on the offensive line. Well, we don't have any reason to be overly optimistic.
I'm not down. I just think it's a giant question mark.
Well, that's what I'm saying. People are going to take what we say, though. Mostly, they like to nitpick, and if you're not saying that these 5 are going to be Hall of Famers, then you're dissing them. Right. And I think, and I hope the point that we've driven across. Look, there is some ability, obviously, on this offensive line. There is some pedigree there. Banner was a 4th round pick, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he probably would have been higher, but he had those weight issues that probably dropped him a bit.
All right, David Castro was a 1st round pick. Kendrick Green was a 3rd round pick. Dotson was 4th, right?
Yeah, 3rd or 4th, and then a core forward was his 3rd round pick as well.
Right. So I mean, you've got guys all taken in the top 4 rounds or higher in there. Dotson, how the hell he fell through the cracks is probably one of. I mean, in a real do-over situation, I mean he's easily a 3rd rounder, maybe a 2nd rounder. When it comes to him. Now, of all the guys in their draft spots, I don't know which one you would maybe question the most. I mean, maybe Kendrick Green. I don't know, but I mean, center class not being deep, that plays a lot into it as well too. So there is some pedigree, there is some talent, quite obviously on this offensive line. It's just, man, we've got to start seeing it before we move any further past kind of our analysis of this,
right.
of this group.
And I think that's the mentality the majority of Steelers fans have right now. I don't know if there's too many people banging on the table for this offensive line until we actually see this group work together. And that's the other thing, too, just working together. Offensive linemen, it's a whole unit. One guy fails, the whole group fails. And so not only is it individually looking at these guys, but how they work together at all their new spots. And there's going to be a question mark there on blitz pickup, stunt pickup, combination blocks, zone blocks. If we see more of that, that's another factor to consider. Not only core four individually and Banner and all that, but just how this group works as one unit. That's going to be important as well.
Sure.
Dave, good segue there, and I want to get to Alex Highsmith here in a moment, but you mentioned, Zack Banner recovering from his torn ACL. You did mention Devon Bush, who was spotted, in practice at some level, so that's good to see him, and, hopefully all signs pointing to him being ready for week 1.
Absolutely. How great was that to see? And, we obviously don't know exactly how much he's doing out there, but there was a video out there yesterday of him, looking like doing the little things kind of coverage related and some cutting and all there. So, assuming that 55 was the same 55 that we think it was, I don't know how you can not look at any of that from yesterday and not get excited. At least where he is from a rehab standpoint. And who knows? Look, I mean, I really thought he was going to mostly be doing more mental reps throughout the entire OTA process there, just as whoa, calm, slow it down a little bit, because remember, we talked about Banner got injured in week 1. Bush's was 5 weeks behind him, right?
Right.
So you would expect maybe him to be kind of 5 weeks, if Banner's just kind of getting started, getting some reps there, that Bush would be more in line of maybe a mandatory mini camp first showing here. So the fact that he's out there doing anything, cutting and all like that, I mean, I don't see how you don't get excited about that. And Banner talked about how him and Bush have both been around and in Pittsburgh all offseason, and kind of a mini me to him, if you will, kind of a Arnold DeVito type twins type situation there. All in all, it was just great to see. And once again, we don't know what, was that one of like 3 reps that maybe Bush had during that OTA practice? We don't know. It doesn't matter, as The Rock would say. The fact is that he's out there. He's got the uniform on. He's participating in drills in some level of capacity is big enough news in and of itself. And what a great way to enter the weekend after the first week OTAs like that.
Absolutely, yeah. If he's out there taking any reps, that's a positive sign. And if he's cutting, because cutting is usually the last thing they ask you to do. Whenever you're recovering from an ACL, it's running in a straight line, and then cutting is that last kind of hurdle to clear. So positive signs there for Devon Bush. Also positive signs for Alex Highsmith heading into that all-important sophomore season, looking to play stronger. Only added 3 pounds, but as Highsmith calls it, a good 3 pounds, up to around 253, 254.
And that's about probably what you think he should be at, right? The biggest thing, and it's like a broken record. We talk about it every year, I think, with second players, especially defensive players. Got to get stronger, play strength, yada, yada. It's no different with him. I don't think you have to worry about this guy off the field and him doing what he's supposed to do, to get his body. And I mean, he's obviously got a full, a full season underneath his belt now. He knows the rigors of the NFL, probably has a lot better idea of how to better take care of his body, all the things that these guys learn as rookie. I mean, there's a couple of shots floating around of him at practice provided by the media. He looks pretty good, man. Not that many shots come out of there that I look at guys and say, boy, he doesn't look good, but he looks good. He trains with Beast. I forget what the name of it.
I'm not sure the name.
But out there in Carolina, that guy works on a lot of hand, kind of, I guess, jiu-jitsu kind of stuff there, hand fighting and whatnot. And when we obviously got to see a little bit of that out of Alex Highsmith last season, once again, this just the biggest thing I think when it comes to Alex Highsmith, and it was good to hear him. He knows it, he hears it. And he professed it the other day as well too. He's got to do more on that side to make life easier on one TJ Watt, especially when it comes to the pass rushing aspect of his game. And the other aspect of his game that he knows he's got to improve on is his play against the run. And that, more than anything, might be the thing that we scrutinize the most, I think, Alex, to start the season here. Because say what you will about Bud Dupree, I know Bud Dupree had a lot of non-fans for the longest time. Then several of those people maybe finally came over to his side of the fence there after a couple play a couple years ago. For the greater part of Bud Dupree's career in Pittsburgh, he was strong against the run. And that's one aspect that Highsmith really has to, I think, get better at there, along with becoming a better pass rusher. I think Highsmith is a better pass rusher at this point of his career than obviously Bud Dupree was at that same point in his career. You just got to put it all together now and make that considerable second-year jump that Mike Tomlin talks about all the time. So once again, I understand people being optimistic about Highsmith this year, and you should, based on what we saw last year. But until it's one thing to be optimistic, but it's one thing to point to the fence when it comes to several of these players and say this is what he's going to be. You got to prove it.
Yeah, but I think there were a lot of encouraging signs last season, especially picking up, when Bud Dupree went down with that torn ACL, just from a conditioning and just availability standpoint too. Those little things, taking care of your body, seemed like Highsmith had a good grasp of all of that. But yeah, I want him to find that go-to pass rush move. He has a lot of tools in the tool belt. I want him to really hone in on just one and make that kind of his go-to, gotta have it moment type of rush, and probably improve against the run as well. Because again, as we mentioned, I think on last show and several times recently, that if you can't play the run, you're not going to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if you can play the run, they're going to keep you around for a while. Jarvis Jones played 4 years for this team, even though he couldn't rush the passer with a lick, because he actually played fairly decent run defense. But Highsmith there, all good, to hear from him. Though I'll be honest, I don't know what Highsmith could do to take attention away from TJ Watt. Because, if you're a team and you're saying it's Watt versus Highsmith, we're going to roll all the attention to TJ Watt. And if Highsmith gets occasional pressure, then, so be it.
You just got to make them pay for it, you know?
That's what it is, yep.
It's not like they're going to go, you know what? Ahead of this game, we better pay a little bit more attention. Highsmith's going to have to earn that kind of respect throughout this year and probably next season as well too. One thing, I think I'm interested to see a little bit more in is from Highsmith as a pass rusher is, can we see some of that speed to power?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's the effort of him just getting a little heavier, a little bit stronger as well.
And can we mix in? Can we see some of that? He's good with his hands, right?
Great hand usage. Yeah, he's got a good plan. He's a smart pass rusher.
Can we start see him do a lot of that without thinking more? Knowing when to have that hand swipe and go into the rip and all like that. So and that's one thing. Have we seen really many good kind of rips from him? Now obviously James Harrison was able to size and stature and all made the rip move absolutely perfect for size, strength, and everything, and demeanor and everything made. But with James Harrison, really had two moves, right? The rip and kind of the bull, and that was it.
That's all you need. As a pass rusher, you really need two moves. And you can win with that. You have a main one and a counter. Harrison, Freeney, all those guys. Great pass rushers had basically two moves.
Now, in a case of TJ Watt, he's got like 4 of them.
Right. Well, he's just a special dude.
But I would. One of the things I think with Highsmith when it comes to pass rushing specifically this year is I want to see more of that speed to power usage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought his bull rushers were pretty weak last season.
Right.
And so if you can add that threat as well, the guy's got like 10 different moves. He will throw the ghost, cross chop, swim, spin, rip. He's got every move, you could think of. But can you perfect a couple of those and use the others you still have as occasional change-ups, really keep a tackle on their toes? Sure. But you want to just really perfect. And he's talked about that as well earlier this offseason, really just trying to find, what are his best moves that he can use to when the game's on the line. If he does that, I think he'll have a really strong sophomore season.
I think, assuming he stays healthy, yada, yada, all the disclaimers – there's the opportunity for this kid to have 8 to 10 sacks this season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look, sacks are not everything. That it's one thing that we kind of reiterate, or at least try to reiterate all the time. But boy, they damn sure help too, especially if you get the football out, or if they come in, if they're quality sacks come in key situations of games. So I hate to say. He needs X amount of snaps or sacks in this season for it to be a successful season. But how can you not kind of put a number on that? What is that number? 8?
Yeah, it's hard to say. There's going to be so many sacks, taken up by Hayward and Tua and T.J. Watt. I don't think Highsmith is ever going to be a consistent double-digit sack guy where he's ripping off 11 to 12 every single year. I think he's probably, a little lower ceiling than that, but just really consistent play. Probably put him in that, 6 to 8 range. He only did have 2 sacks last season. There were some close calls there, some pressures, but I think 6 to 8 is kind of the number I'm hoping for from him.
If he hits 8, especially if a couple of those are some high quality ones, then
right.
I think that's been a great season for him.
Yeah, I hope so as well. So again, I have less questions about Highsmith as I do the guys behind Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. That is where my big concern comes in at the edge position.
There was some positive stuff, on who was the one that was talking about Quincy Roche?
That was Highsmith.
Oh yeah, that was Highsmith. He said, look, he's asking. I think it's unfair to ask a second year player about a rookie overall. Even though I thought Dotson, if I was going to ask a player, any second year player that this Steelers team has questions and get good answers, just the way Dotson, his demeanor and everything that goes along with it is. But Highsmith just, as expected, had good things to say about Quincy Roche. And look, that's one guy to be interested to see, because like Highsmith last year, Highsmith was kind of thrust right into action there, right out of shooting. Got some meaningful snaps. And as things stand right now, barring some sort of move, Quincy Roche is kind of on that same path right now. Mm-hmm. You would think.
He is kind of the way that Ola Daney and Highsmith were last year, splitting snaps early, then Highsmith taking over throughout midseason. Yeah, he said on Roche, Highsmith did, quote, "He's a guy who's willing to work, eager to learn. He's always asking questions. That's one thing I like about him and I respect about him is his work ethic," end quote. So good stuff there. It's good to hear that answer, obviously, but all these guys get asked about the rookies, and everyone says they're doing a good job. And what are they going to say? That guy sucks. I mean, it's just it's just kind of a boilerplate answer to me.
Right. I mean, it's hard to read way too much into comments that you would expect one teammate to make about another one.
Right. Plus, the Steelers always draft hardworking guys and hearts and smarts and all that. So it's never like they draft some questionable character, crazy guy or anything like that. So, I mean, they get guys who are going to work hard, but it is good to hear that, and it's good to hear they're asking questions and, being that sponge and trying to soak up information. That'll certainly, help and accelerate your learning process in the NFL. Anything else from Alex Highsmith you wanted to touch on, Dave?
No, I think that's got a lot of it there. I mean, once again, I think for a second year player, and said all the right things. Right.
A lot of mature second year guys. That rookie class in 2020, Dave, for not having a first round pick. I mean, that is just acing it to me.
Right.
Tyson Alualu also spoke to the media on yesterday. Talked about the injuries he battled through last year. We knew that he had that MCL sprain, suffered in that game against Baltimore, and I believe week 6, week 7. Also said, and I didn't realize this, I think Dr. Meldo had kind of sleuthed this out during the season, that Alualu confirmed he was playing with a high ankle sprain in at least the last 2 games of the season, and that guy missed just 1 game due to the MCL, played through the pain. Obviously, he didn't play as well, and the Steelers' run defense kind of really tanked really after his injury, his MCL injury, but that is just one of the toughest dudes, one of the more underrated Iron Men in football. Missed 4 games in 11 seasons, and it's not because you're perfectly healthy. It's because you're playing through the pain and just cutting it out.
Yeah, I wonder if he sells his blood or.
You can try to ask him.
Man, that guy, he's the second oldest player on the team.
Right behind Ben. Yeah, how old is he? 34.
I mean, how old is he? Like, is he? Let's see.
I mean, he's found the fountain of youth, so I don't even know if his age really counts anymore. Yeah, he just turned 34.
34. Right. I mean, I want to know what this guy eats and everything. What a perfect teammate this guy is. I mean, could you draw up, a more perfect Steeler than this guy as far as defensive lineman goes, especially going back the last, 15, 20 years or whatnot in this organization. And remember how down we were when and really surprised we were right out of the chute when it did look like he was leaving and going to Jacksonville. I mean, I think that was one that I had already cashed the chips on in the bank. I said, this is going to happen. He's going to be back with the Steelers this offseason. And then looking at what a huge void potentially that might be without him. And then for things to kind of work out the way it did, he talked again about getting COVID and how that played, gave him a little bit more time to think. And, I guess if there's one positive thing to come out of COVID, it was Tyson Alualu returning back to Pittsburgh for a little less money there. He talked about how wanted, his teammates made him feel to be back, and really why wouldn't you want that guy back overall. I think the best case scenario right now, and when it comes to Tyson Alualu in the 2021 season, is just keep him healthy. First and foremost, try to get kind of as many snaps, I think, as you can, maybe early on in the season, and at the same time, hopefully you get some progression out of another second-year player in Carlos Davis. That's one guy I wish yesterday that, and I understand why they would ask Tyson Alualu about a guy like Loudermilk and what do you see out of him and all like that. I think the better question, if you're going to ask that question, would have been asking Tyson Alualu what he thinks and have seen out of Carlos Davis so far, right? Yeah. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But I think a best case scenario is, obviously you resume the role that Tyson Alualu has played in this defense obviously this last year and more. And at the same time, you try to maybe take some of that wear and tear off of him, because he is an older player here that he's gonna grind down at some point, and isn't that the reason that you drafted, hopefully, or think Carlos Davis can kind of become that guy in the middle of that defense there. So thrilled to have him back. And I thought Tyson Alualu being asked about the importance of what he gets out of, or what he and other players get out of being at OTAs, was just the absolute fantastic right answer there. So, and it's sad to hear that, kind of later in the season, he was hampered by a high ankle sprain as well, too.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool that he showed up for OTAs. They're voluntary. He's 34 years old. He knows the system. He had no compelling reason to be there, but he still wanted to be there to, I think, be around his teammates, be around those young guys, Isaiah Buggs, Isaiah Loudermilk, Carlos Davis, a lot of young guys along that defensive line. So that was pretty cool. And you're right, really strong teammate, really good player, and hopefully with him healthy, he can play the way he did, pre-injury last year, because he was just absolutely fantastic the first, 5 weeks of last season. He was just as good as any nose tackle in football.
Right. Then you even go back to the season before that, right? Look, obviously the older he gets and all, there could be a decline in it. Even if he fell off the cliff this year, I am totally fine with what he's given this team, because look, I had my question marks after that first contract of his, whether or not he would be back, and wondering if that was the right decision. But Lord have mercy. The position, using him a little bit different, ask him, just the last year, the last 2 seasons alone makes it worth him being in Pittsburgh. So anything that they get out of him, I think, in 2021 is just gravy. And once again, I think the plan should be use him, as much obviously as you can when healthy early on in the season in that same role that he's been. Right. But at the same time, you got to find a way to kind of get Carlos Davis some snaps too. So if you can kind of lighten the load on Tyson Alualu as the season rolls on, I think you kind of preserve him, and maybe you get some quality snaps at him more toward the end of the season.
Yeah, that's a good way to frame it. And I got to say, shame on the Steelers for letting this guy almost walk over $500,000. They're lucky he just, it's weird to say, but lucky he got COVID and decided them coming back. And it sounds like he just didn't want to have to buy a house in Jacksonville. That's the reason why he came back to Pittsburgh. But $500,000 for a guy that provides that much on and off field value for you just seemed like a really foolish decision for Pittsburgh. And I compared Alualu, and I think it's a better version of it, but kind of like the Steelers' current Darius Hayward-Bay, former first-round pick, kind of had a career not go quite the way planned with his first team, but kind of being able to reinvent himself, and still the same way DHB became a special teamer, but just becoming that really strong veteran presence, helping the young guys out, and just having a really impressive career. 34 years old, still in the NFL, 11 years going into year number 12. That is something very few players do, even first-round picks like him.
If he has another, average to above average season here in 2021, we're going to have to go back and maybe rearrange some of those best free agents. Kevin, signed by the Steelers during the Kevin Colbert era. Now, obviously, no one's going to be able to unseat James Ferrier from
Ryan Clark's up there,
right? And some of those guys, are going to stay put there. But at what point does Tyson Alualu move in? I don't know, top 5 or obviously have to look back at that list and all like that. But he's been that great of an addition. And once again, if you can get, I don't know, how many snaps is he going to play, Alex, in 2021? 400? 450?
Probably 35 to 40%, whatever the total number of snaps end up being.
I mean, we have seen him just absolutely the last 2 seasons kill some guards and centers, man. I mean, if that kind of stuff continues, into 2021, going to really have to look at that list. Once again, if he falls off the cliff, it happens. Obviously the Steelers aren't expecting that. We do expect 2021 though to be it for him, though, right? Or no?
Well, I mean, we'll see. I'm not necessarily expecting that. I just want to see how the season goes. I mean, he's still playing well, and if his body feels good, then what's preventing him from playing another season after this, I suppose.
All right, fair enough.
But we shall see. Anything else that players have talked about this past week at OTAs, Dave? Anything else from Banner or Dotson, or did I miss any player that spoke that we haven't discussed at all?
No, we had the 4, right? We had the 2 offensive linemen, Banner and Dotson. We had, I'm trying to think there if we missed anything on Dotson. Dotson or Highsmith or anything along those lines. But no, I think maybe the biggest thing is we didn't hear from Ben Roethlisberger or Mike Tomlin this week. Maybe that'll happen next week there. But I don't know. Are we missing anything? We talked about the draft pick signing. We covered a lot of stuff in here.
Okay. All right, good deal, Dave. I want to go back to some salary cap news. The way the NFL has done this is sort of strange, I guess, but they have set a salary cap ceiling for next year, for 2022, a salary cap maximum next year of $208.2 million. So it could come under that, but that is the maximum cap will be for next season. Anything that goes above that will go back to the players and some debt thing. I don't know the logistics of it. You can probably explain that better than I can, but that is our new ceiling for next year, 208.2.
How fun is it to at least have a ceiling number here?
Is it fun?
To me, it is.
That's your definition of fun.
Yeah, that's look. I sucked at algebra and geo. I was a great math student as a young kid and all, on up through 8th grade and all like that. But boy, hit high school and they started putting letters in math. That shook me, man.
What do you think? Because I had kind of the same problem where I can do some basic math, but they put the letters in it and it just kind of wrecks me.
Oh yeah, it just I'm wrecked once you put letters in there. Yeah. I don't know what it is. I was that kid that knew all my times tables better than any other kid in the class. I could do a lot of the math in the head and all like that. But boy, once they put Y and X in there, it shook me, man. Shook me bad.
The 1,000-yard stare in algebra class you're getting. Anyway.
Yeah, the geometry was a train wreck, man. On top of, but yeah, I think it's nice to at least have a ceiling amount to work with at this point. And once again, that is a ceiling amount of $208.2 million. That is the absolute best case scenario. Should we expect that? I mean, I think it's foolish to say that it should be guaranteed that. I mean, that's what we're hoping for. But I think people need to accept the fact that it could come in lower than that. All right. How much lower? Oh man, I think 200 would be kind of the floor I would expect. Now obviously it could come in lower than that, but it's important to reemphasize that $208.2 million is not the number. It's the project. It's what the highest the number could be. If they hit it, great. If they don't, well, then you have to do some adjusting from there. Now, regardless, I think when you look at the Steelers salary cap situation, depending on what happens with Ben, I mean, there's still a lot of variables out there that could change this thing. I think when you look at what's expected to happen the remainder of this offseason, That would be T.J. Watt signing a very, very, very lucrative contract extension, which I think will come with a cap charge in 2022 of around $23 million or so. Mark that down, see how close I get to that number there later on this summer. But around $23 million could be what T.J. Watt's cap number in 2022 is. You're still going to probably have some can kickage. Is that a word? Is that a verb? Can kickage that happens with Stephon Tuitt and Chris Boswell later on this offseason here. On top of it, push comes to shove, I think you can go ahead and put the Steelers down for at least kind of around $175 million being accounted for in 2022. Maybe a little slightly more than that. And then obviously if you're looking, let's say at a $200 million, let's say things don't go perfect and that the cap number comes in at $200 million in 2022. I mean, you're still looking at $25 million under the cap, right? And then, right. I mean, and that's not cutting anybody or anything there. So that's obviously a good look. Now, what happens beyond that? Are you and a lot of these questions we won't be able to answer for some time now. What's going to happen with Juju? Are you going to get in a situation where maybe you have to, if you want to keep Juju, where maybe you have to use the franchise tag first? I mean, that the plausibility of that's there, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially because his contract's set to void. The voidable years are set to void five days after the Super Bowl. Would you expect the Steelers to make any alterations to Juju's contract before those voidable years void?
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either. So that sets you up for then, assuming those voidable years void, then you're looking at a player that obviously would not become a free agent until the start of the new league year in 2022 in March. So then you have the decision once again of basically like they were faced this year. Do you let him test free agency? Do you get him re-signed before that? Do you have to use the if I'm Juju and I have the kind of season that I think that I can potentially maybe have in 2021 after going through what I went through this offseason, I forced the tag, brother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All I know is the Steelers are going to have some cap space they didn't have this year. They'll have some options, and we'll kind of see how things go.
And then we talked about Chukwuma Okorafor, what's going to happen there. Right. What's going to happen with Ben Roethlisberger? Is indeed 2021 it? If it's not, right. What's that going to look like?
I have no idea. Terrell Edmonds, with them not picking up the fifth-year option, that kind of just seemed to signal that they're going to move on from him. But if he has a good season, then that's not a guarantee either. So, again, there's
people probably screaming Minkah Fitzpatrick. The thing with him is at least you have a placeholder in place with him at around what was it, 10 something million and all. Mm-hmm. So I think anything that happens with him a year at the same time next year probably not going to move his cap number too terribly much either direction there. What's going to happen with David Castro?
Right. Another free agent. So I think we can't answer those questions now. Obviously, all we can say is that they're going to have some level of cap space to try to address some of those situations.
Right. I don't think we're going to come February when my annual post talking about how the Steelers can trim $20 to $30 million of cap space. I think the bigger question, which is something that we haven't, a question that we haven't had to ask or get answered in quite some time now, is how will the Steelers go about utilizing $20 to $30 million in cap space? And a little different angle, but once again, that stuff will get, people are going to look at this and try to paint all these rosy pictures and all like that. Remember, you don't have a franchise quarterback under contract. Yeah. That's the biggest thing whatsoever. People are going to say, "Oh, this is all fine and dandy," but and expect the Steelers to rush out and spend all this cap space and all, something they don't do in free agency, and I still don't think you should expect them to do, regardless of what the situation is. And you don't have a franchise quarterback. And, how do you go into some Neil O'Donnell years here? What have you?
Yeah, warning when you say that name.
What have you there? So, it's going to probably be a different scenario than what we're used to dealing with here the last couple of years. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's a great scenario if you get my drift.
Mm-hmm. No, I do. And I was going to say, the most important question going into next offseason isn't about a core or Edmonds or even Juju. It's who's your quarterback. And if it's Mason Rudolph, then I guess problem solved in the Steelers' mind. Not in my mind, but in Pittsburgh's mind. If it's not, then will you go sign a bridge quarterback? And those guys still aren't cheap. And it's not going to be a long-term deal you're going to sign that guy to. It'll probably be a 1 or 2 year contract. So that's going to be a fairly sizable cap hit. So that is going to be priority number one, is figure out your quarterback situation, and then you can deal with the rest. But that has to be the first question asked and answered by this time next year.
Look, nobody likes looking more ahead at this stuff than I do. I didn't sleep a wink last night because I'm out $120,000 right now.
On the salary cap.
On the salary cap. I don't know. My wife in QVC, maybe I'm out $120,000. right now the other way too. But $120,000. Just long story short, the update that happened day before yesterday, there was an unexpected debit of $120,000. I have not yet tracked that down. I promise that I will at some point, but there's $120,000 less in salary cap space this year, or right now than was at the start of the week. Let's just put it to you that way. There, it's probably going to end up being a grievance or something that was settled finally and all like that. I will definitely let everybody know as soon as I find out there. But back to the main, my main talking point there. I love tracking this stuff and looking ahead and love every aspect of the salary cap and all. I understand why the optimistic side of people is to look. There's a one finger being pointed into my room right now. Any ideas what that one finger is?
Not the ring finger.
No. Yeah.
Adjacent.
Yeah. That wasn't pretty. But anyway, nobody likes looking more ahead at this stuff than I do, and I understand the fans wanting the optimistic view of, this team's in fantastic shape. Okay, yes, from a under the cap situation, there is, but there is still, once again, a lot of questions you and I are not going to be able to answer or even probably properly speculate about, I don't think, until at least halfway through the 2021 season.
Yeah, at the earliest. So again, we can speculate all day, and we can do that, and we probably will, but we're not going to know some of these answers for quite some time. Not to derail things too much, but just since you mentioned grievance, it just jumped to mind. And I'm not saying this is what the $120,000 discrepancy is, but was there ever a result of the Bud Dupree grievance of the franchise tag of defensive end versus outside linebacker? Was there ever a conclusion on that?
Not that we not that I'm aware of. I asked fairly recently, I think, and there wasn't. At this point, you would think you would already get that by now. I would think.
Hope so.
And if it was only $120,000, if that winds up being what that was, I doubt it was. But if that's what it was, what a win for the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, I guess theoretically it could be, but you wouldn't think so because it's a small amount of money, and there was a couple $1 million difference between one tag and the other.
Right.
So.
That was a lot bigger difference than 120. So if the grievance was $120,000 with Bud Dupree and he won that, God bless him, but God bless the Steelers more, Yeah. And I don't think it was that. This is probably going to end up being some sort of, injury grievance or something like that. I don't know for sure, but I am efforting.
Okay. And if you can say this publicly, you confirmed no signing bonus for Arthur Millette?
No signing bonus, and that was another thing that I had to make sure. When it came to all that, is I wanted to make sure that my difference wasn't signing bonus related to a guy like Arthur Millette, because the NFLPA. Look, we do most of our work off of knowing the certain math attributes that come along with tracking this, and one total on the NFLPA salary cap sheet how that salary cap number shifts every day is how that's the only number that we work off of, you know? So we have to figure out displacement, cost, who likely hit the what contract probably hit. So, there's a lot of, and that's what, to me, I think makes it fun and challenging at the same time, is basically most of my work in tracking comes off of how one number goes up and down in every update there. So sometimes you do actually, if you don't follow it every day, this thing can snowball on you in a hurry. So like today, for instance, the latest update, we were expecting the Najee Harris and Pat Freiermuth contracts to both hit. Whatever the next update happened, that actually, or movement in the number, that actually happened this morning. And it was exactly what we thought it would be with them hitting the rule of 51 and then the displacement and everything that goes along with that. Now, the problem that we had is a couple of days ago, we had Buddy Johnson and Dan Moore Jr. both expected to hit. They did hit. The number was right, plus, but there was 120,000 extra debited that we don't have a reason for. So that's day in the life. Now that everybody's so excited to know how my mornings go, that's the long and short of it.
And I do appreciate you saying we. It is you, not me. Because if I was doing this, the Steelers would be $11 billion over the salary cap or something. But that is all your handiwork, and no one does it better than you, Dave.
As of this morning, by the way, if you want kind of a more real-time look at where this team is right now, let me pull up the number here. Pending the signing of Kendrick Green, which we talked about early in the show, has not happened yet. But all these other contracts now, all the undrafted free agents have hit. All of the draft picks have hit. Obviously, minus Kendrick Green, this team right now is 6.999106 under the cap as we speak right now, and that's probably as real time. Well, that is as real time as you're going to get right now. So $7 million under the cap with only Kendrick Green left to go. That's not going to move the cap much, move the number much of any down. We talk about how this team is going to need roughly around $7 million just in in-season cap space alone. So they're right there right now. The only problem is you've got a practice squad you got to account for. You've got to account for a 52nd and 53rd player yet to account for. Whatever matriculation happens, roster needed in between there. So this just further, leads one to believe that a Stephon Tuitt, Chris Boswell restructure is on the way here at some point. Once again, when you look at a guy like T.J. Watt and his extension, I got to be quite honest with you. I've looked at this thing as a few different ways, Alex, and structure wise and all like that. They might eat up another couple $1 million in cap space in getting T.J. Watt done this year.
They'll lose cap space.
Right. I mean,
really?
His number could go from the 10 point whatever it's scheduled to be to maybe around 12 point million, because you're going to barring them doing something creative with the contract and as we've talked about, fully guaranteed, stuff that the Steelers don't do with non-quarterbacks here. If they stay on that path, and I mean, is there any reason to believe that they will alter? For a guy like T.J. Watt, I don't, right now I don't think there is. And as stated, T.J. Watt's currently on the books for a cap number of $10.089 million. If you give him the cash flow that he deserves in 2021, in other words, signing bonus, base salary, roster bonus, all combined, that number should be around $45 million. And people are probably dropping their phones or swerving off the road right now I wonder how many people actually do drop their phone or swerve off the road because of maybe something that we say on this podcast or whatnot. But I mean, realistically, that is the amount of money that I think we should expect TJ Watt to put in his pocket in 2021, right around $45 million. Well, how are you going to give TJ Watt $45 million on paper in 2021? Obviously, a large bulk of that's going to be a signing bonus, right? So let's say $40 million of that. $40 million of that is a signing bonus. Well, you can only stretch that out over 5 years. So that gives you a flat cap prorated charge right there of $8 million alone. Right? And you still have got to find a way to give him $5 more million in 2021 in form of a base salary and or a roster bonus there. Well, if it's whatever the roster bonus portion of it is, would go in 2021 against the cap. So let's assume let's call that another, I don't know, $3 million, or let's say it's $2 million. All right. So we've got $8 million on the books for proration. We got $2 million with roster, but there you are. You're at $10 million. That's and we talked about his numbers already, 10.089. Well, the minimum his base salary could be, I think, is something like almost $1 million. So let's go ahead and call that $1 million there. Well, you got $1 million plus $8 million, that's $9 million, plus another $2 million. I mean, that's $11 million. So his cap number's gone up $1 million just on that scenario alone.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that because, for a while we thought about, either staying about flat or dropping a little bit. So if it goes up even $1.5 million or so, how are they going to fit that? Because they are so tight against the cap, even assuming the two in Boz restructures are going to happen.
Well, I mean, we've in my most recent looking ahead kind of thing, that the Steelers had roughly around 1.7, 1.8, maybe $2 million in potential effective usable salary cap space after the Tuitt and Boswell restructures are done. Well, there you go. There's your $2 million.
Well, not going to sign anybody else, I guess, are you?
I mean, you can, but not for much more than the minimum, something that we've preached pretty much all along here. Any guy that you bring in from the outside at this point is not going to move the needle too terribly much. I mean, that's it. I mean, and that's something that we seemingly preached not only this offseason, but nearly every offseason anyway there. Now, are you going to have some give somewhere in the final 53? Is a guy going to get cut that makes $1 million or more, that maybe frees you up $500,000 here, $500,000 there? Yeah. I mean, obviously, the punter situation is probably a perfect example of that, correct?
Yeah. Well, you saw that last year with Barry and Colquitt, and you're saying you could see it again this year with Barry and Harvin III? Right,
because, look, you have Barry set to count 950,000 against the cap, and then you look at a guy like Presley Harvin the third is set to count 680 against the cap there. So boom, I just got you 300,000. Right. You could probably go through the rest of the roster here and look at guys like, I don't know. Who else?
Well, Vince Williams, if he got cut.
Right. Well, yeah. There's a Vince Williams situation there. Let's see. Ulysses, believe it or not, Ulysses Gilbert. If you kept a rookie linebacker in favor of him, there's a couple 100,000 there. What about Trey Edmonds? Trey Edmonds ain't making this roster unless something's gone off the rails bad. If Trey Edmonds has made this roster, so there's a couple 100,000.
What about Justin Lane if he gets the axe? Save a little bit with him for third round pick.
Let's see. Is he currently in the? Yeah, I mean, he's obviously currently, I think, in the role of 51. Trying to.
Not that he's making a lot, but maybe making a little bit more than even a Trey Edmonds, just because of the rookie deal.
Yeah, I mean that's another one there.
What's his base salary this year?
Let me see. I'm trying to find him on my list.
$1,980,000. I don't know what the number would be.
Where is he? Okay, yeah, 850,000 base salary. He's set to count almost 1.1 million.
All right, so a little bit less than what I thought, but a point taken. Some of those things will free up a little bit of cap space in the aggregate.
We expect from when we sit here right now, a guy like Ray McLeod's probably a perfect example. $1 million cap hit, flat. That's what That's it. That's the ticket tax tag title out the door. What if he doesn't make it and a younger receiver does? Right. It would be kind of an undrafted guy, you would think. There's 340,000 in cap space there. Now, obviously, is all this attrition going to happen? Some of it. But how much are you going to have? How much of that your savings is going to go for a guy like T.J. Watt? Like I said, that maybe goes from a cap charge of all 10 million to 12, 13 million. So,
All right, well, good info there. Should be interesting. But thank you for keeping us informed on Steelers salary cap, and hopefully you get your white whale of figuring out this $120,000.
I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it, just like I got that 80,000 a couple of weeks ago. I found it. I'll get this. I have feelers out to the right people right now.
All right, we like to hear that. All right, Dave. I think the last thing on my notes I wanted to talk about today was just more positive news. Again, nothing 100% official yet. That probably won't come until sometime, I'm guessing, mid-June, maybe late June. But the NFL is saying they are allowing fans to attend training camp this summer. Of course, still have to be in lockstep with state and local guidelines, but every single sign based off of Art Rooney's comments and the league's comments and just the state of the pandemic, especially in the state of PA in general, point to the Steelers returning to Latrobe with fans. Will there be some sort of restrictions? Probably to some extent. I doubt there'll be the fence line for autographs and the mob that exists for that, but I think as of today, and knock on wood here, every expectation we should be there for training camp as we were pre-pandemic.
Man, I've already got in the budget this summer for you to have a face mask budget, a face shield budget, anything you need, Alex. We can move you up from McDonald's to Chick-fil-A.
Whoa!
This year,
we're doing that well.
I mean, I'm not saying. I'm just saying. We have it in the budget to do anything it takes to have you at training camp this year. Look, I mean, all joking aside, I mean, obviously it's great for the country that things are moving in the direction that they are, and I know how excited you are to get back out there again.
I'm chomping at the bit. Last year was super depressing for a lot of reasons, obviously, and pandemic much greater than sports, and me not going to training camps the least of anyone's problems, but be very happy to be out there. And it's just as long as they say we can go, I mean, that should be all we need. And plus, I mean, you've been to St. Vincent, it's open, it's a big field. There are bleachers, of course, maybe a lot of space people out that way, but it's a really open air environment. So I think, any sort of risk should be pretty low, especially come training camp, which I believe the official date's going to be not 100% official, but based off of NFL reporting, should be reporting July 21st with the first day practice, July 22nd. That's what I'm believing right now.
Oh, I got somebody's cutting onions in my house.
But yeah, so we'll be back.
Tears in my eyes.
I have our training camp diary and our full recap of things if everything goes well. So that's everything I had. Anything else you want to get to, or do you want to get to read your emails and close out today's show?
It's starting to feel like football season already, isn't it?
Yeah, things are feeling good. Well, it's May. I'm trying to get a little break, but the news cycle never stops.
But we're not going to have Cowboys versus Steelers though, right?
Right.
Session. I mean, they're obviously going to play in a Hall of Fame game, but there was a report out there. That report kind of moved kind of quick. That there's a possibility maybe that Cowboys and Steelers could have some sort of joint. I think possible training camp practices. I would assume maybe before the Hall of Fame game took place, but I think that's been put to bed that that's not going to happen now, right?
Right, yeah, that was report says that those plans have fallen through. Don't know the reason, the rationale for that. Steelers have had joint practices in the past with Buffalo and Detroit, but don't know if they'll do it this year. Also feels like football season because Le'Veon Bell is tweeting about how the Steelers should have paid him, and he's all kind of salty on Twitter.
Boy, Uncle Dave told Le'Veon Bell and his agent Adisa Bakari that they were making a wrong decision there by turning down the Steelers' final offer at the time there. This train went right down the track that I kind of envisioned it going there. Here's the funny thing about it. Let's see, that would have been 2018 that he sat out the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's say he would have signed that deal 2018, 19, 20. He would have 3 years. He would have easily made it through those first 3 years. There was no way he was not good. Well, I don't want to say no way, but I mean, he was all but guaranteed to at least be on the Steelers roster those first 3 years through this past season. Am I correct?
You are correct, sir.
I mean, it would have really taken something kind of cataclysmic, I think, for him not to have been on this roster last season.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, all the restructuring and everything that Steelers did in those 3 years on top of it there, it's not out of the realm of possibility or plausibility that in 2019 or 2020 they might have had to restructure his contract, which would have put them a little bit more on the hook and reason to keep him even past 2020. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think you are.
So right now we are looking at, and they could have still, who knows how it would have impacted the draft. There's so many rabbit holes and what ifs and things you could go on. We could really be looking at a scenario right now. Had Le'Veon Bell signed that Steelers' best deal, prior to deciding to sit out, that we could be looking at a 90-man roster right now that includes Le'Veon Bell and maybe even Najee Harris. I don't know. Who knows how that stuff would have played out,
Right.
And all. But at the very least, I think there is a possibility that we could have be looking at it. And I know people right now probably saying, "Oh, good riddance. Glad he didn't sign." But just a signature away, technically, of this team having Le'Veon Bell still on the roster right now.
Yeah, it's possible. It would have been the best thing for Bell, I think, financially and for his career. But he said on Twitter, quote, "I'll sign somewhere when I'm ready." And I'm sure those teams are rushing the door to sign him right now.
Yeah, and I haven't ever seen any footage of someone forcing someone to sign an NFL contract yet.
But he claims he was finessed.
Okay.
And lied to.
By...
He doesn't say specifically, but he was throwing some shots at Adam Gase and the Jets for using him on just halfback dives constantly. So I think that's his case. He was sold a bill of goods by Adam Gase. Unless he's mad at Andy Reid for not being a good offensive coach, but that's
he sure didn't mind what that Green was telling him. The other Green was telling him at the time, right? Look, it's all about the money. It's never not about the money. Any situation, especially in the NFL, you want to go to the root of it and use a starting point, start with the money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he says no more rush decisions on my end. What was rushed? You sat out a whole season, buddy. I don't know how. What could be less rushed than
he had two seasons that he could entertain a long-term contract with the Steelers. What was rushed?
Nothing. That franchise tag stuff and the negotiations went up to the final day. In terms of him, maybe he's saying he rushed into signing with the Jets, but that didn't even feel super rushed either. I don't know. But
that's the part of the. That's the part of the look. I'm not mad. He did what he thought was right for business at the time. But this is the part of it though that I do hate though, is these guys coming back and saying these things and trying to use them as crutches or whatnot. Mm. All right. Hey, just say, you know what? I effed up, man. Yeah. And you know what? That would endure. What's the word I'm looking for?
Endear. Yeah.
Endear. Thank you. You are my walking thesaurus dictionary. That's the type of stuff that I think would endear him to a team at this time of the offseason anyway. Right. Why not get on Twitter and say, "Oh man, it's been a rough couple of seasons there. I'm thankful to the Jets. I'm thankful to the Steelers. I'm thankful for the Chiefs. Man, I have made some bad decisions so far, but I sound like this is something that Nuke Lelouch would say out of Bull Durham, a movie that you've yet to see yet. Yeah. But kind of hey, fill me up with cliches right now, Le'Veon Bell. I think it would help him if he came out and say, you know what, I made some bad decisions. I'm thankful for what I've had right now. I don't want to point any fingers at anybody. I'm just looking to find another team to play for right now. And instead, he comes off as this guy that was forced to sign a contract, that none of this last couple 2.5 seasons or whatever has been his fault. It just, who wants that in their building right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't tweet through it, Le'Veon Bell. I promise you, it's not going to help. I don't know if it hurts you, but it doesn't help you at all. But anyway, that's
there was a time after his first couple seasons in the league, Alex. There was a point where you thought maybe this guy could kind of eclipse the Eddie George kind of, he could kind of been the next best all around kind of guy,
an LT, a Marshall Faulk kind of thing,
but how now if he re-signed with the Steelers or whatnot, would who knows how the last couple of years would have went for him and all, but
probably better than how they actually went is my guess.
Great point, and that's where I was going there. I'm willing to bet they would have went better than his career would have went better than way it has now. Period. Mm-hmm. So, look, I mean, I don't hate the guy. Still has me blocked. I've been, like it or not, Le'Veon, if you're listening to this, I have been right about you right from the get-go, from contract, yada yada, of how this thing was going to play out here. If you're listening to this, take my advice and tone it down and take the take the other road here.
Well, I'm sure he's listening and has paused the episode and taking those words to heart. But no, you're right. I mean, you have been right about it, and it's just a cautionary tale of when guys leave Pittsburgh, more often than not, it doesn't end up going well for them.
Right. I mean, look, it hasn't worked out for guys like Manny Sanders. I mean, there are instances where it works out. It's just you gotta kind of dig for them, right? I mean, and maybe Juju Smith-Schuster has some good advice this offseason as well too. When it comes to that kind of stuff there. But I think it's safe to say Le'Veon Bell. I mean, I don't know how much he still has in the bank. I don't know what the agent cut was. All like that, but I still think he would have come out of way financially ahead and career-wise ahead had he taken what we seem to still think was the Steelers' best offer in 2018.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, Dave, let's wrap things up and get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
Yeah. Good thing you pushed me along here, because we could have spent another 45 minutes on the salary cap there. Chuck Griffith writes in, Dave, at the beginning of the offseason, I thought that the offensive line from left to right would be Banner, Dotson, center, Castro, Okorafor. Most of this comes from Tomlin's early comments of Banner. Looks like a left tackle. As we are now post-draft, you and Alex think it will be Okorafor, Dotson, Green, Castro, and Banner. Why am I wrong? Well, maybe not necessarily that wrong, but I think Alex and I have kind of projected, even though there was this kind of stuff out there from, let's say, another beat reporter claiming that Banner might be the odds-on favorite to be the new left tackle if AV. I think you and I have been pretty stern and firm in our belief, Alex, that it was going to be Okorafor on the left and Banner on the right. And in so many words, that's what Tomlin said. Draft time, right?
Right.
Don't want to, nothing's guaranteed, blah, blah, blah. As we sit here today, Okorafor left tackle, Banner right tackle. So I don't know what Chuck's asking more than maybe you and I read the tea leaves right about this thing right from the get-go.
Well, I saw that quote too, and I thought it said that Banner was going to be the left tackle, or Tomlin told Banner, I need a left tackle. That quote was incorrect and walked back and said it was actually Tomlin just saying to Banner, I need a tackle, not left or right. So I, based off that comment, initially I thought it would be Banner at left tackle, just based off of that. But now that we know that was wrong, it makes sense because of Cole for a left tackle in college, more comfortable there. Banner predominantly a right tackle in the NFL and in college at USC, so more comfortable there. And just based on run blocking, pass blocking skill sets and strengths and weaknesses, And then based on Tomlin's comment that a core four pencil in as a left tackle now, that those are all the reasons why I believe a core four left side, Banner right side. And I'm pretty confident that's how it's going to go.
I am as well too, and really, that's kind of been my line of thinking throughout this thing. Look, a lot of what we do is speculation based off history, based off trying to parse some comments the best we can, and all like that. So I don't think, Chuck, it's so much about why am I wrong. Just kind of the way you read the tea leaves led you down that path.
Right. Yeah. If you listen, based off that incorrect quote, I can understand what Chuck is saying there, and I fell into that trap as well. But that quote was not accurate, so that's important context.
Michael Rocket, what a name! That sounds like a rock name, right? It sounds like Michael Rocket. Sounds like he should be the drummer for I don't know, some hair bands in the 80s. That's a cool name. Michael writes in. I just lost. And by the way, he's from Haarlem, Netherlands. How about that? We are
nice.
We are probably chart toppers on Steelers podcast in the Netherlands, Alex.
It's a bold take, Dave. I don't know.
I might have to put that on my tombstone.
All right. That's why these episodes are 2 hours.
I know. Was once popular in the Netherlands. Dear men of the Terrible Podcast, it's very early, but knowing the salary cap will rise in 2022 to a whopping $208.2 million. In your opinion, what are the top 4 players the Steelers should re-sign after the 2021 season? Also, if the Steelers could go after one top free agent from another team, who do you think would be a good fit based on potential need? Perhaps 1 or 2 top free agents were on the Steelers' radar during a prior draft, and in your pre-draft analysis, which would help justify the unusual move for the Steelers to go after a top free agent. P.S. Love the daily terrible takes. Keep evolving. Cheers from Haarlem, Netherlands. Michael Rocket. Some great questions there. First, Michael, let's reiterate here. $208.2 million is not locked in stone. That is what the ceiling of the cap will be. Now, as far as boy, that's a lot of you guys like to live way out there in a year and ahead. I'm just wondering if I'm going to be able to make it out of bed tomorrow. Top 4 players the Steelers should re-sign after the 2021 season. Man, that's a question to better ask. It's about halfway through the season, but take a stab at it, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a good answer for you. Juju, the Castro, if he plays well, potentially. I mean, we'll see on Edmonds.
Before we talked about, right. Maybe. Who else? Not going to be Ebron, right?
I wouldn't think so, but again, I want to see how the season goes, but I'm not expecting it.
Who else on defensive? I mean, those would be the names, I think, right there.
There's not a ton of free agents the way there were this year, I don't believe. Yeah, but again, it goes back to your quarterback situation is the big one. What do you do about all that?
Right. I mean, it's easy to rattle off those, the kind of the 3 or 4 names that Alex just rattled off. I think kind of are Captain Obvious, and then obviously we'll see what happens with Ben. That's all obviously gonna be a huge question anyway there. Let's see, top free agent from another team. Who is?
I have no idea. Other than a quarterback, a bridge guy, I half joked Jacoby Brissett because he worked with Matt Canada at NC State. But who knows?
Man, it's Mike. I understand wanting to look out. It's so hard to even kind of speculate. That kind of far out there. Chris Bailey writes in, greetings, Dave and Alex. Dave, I'm glad to hear you had a great vacation. I did. I really did. If anybody gets a chance to go to Albuquerque and Santa Fe and the Grand Canyon, definitely do it. Get with Kevin in Albuquerque on Twitter before you go. He'll lay out some good things for you to do there like he did with us here. His question is, from hearing your discussion on the YouTube live stream, No, we already hit this one the other day. So I think this is the one about Hines Ward and James Harrison and all like that. So I sorted this and I sorted it wrong, and this one popped back up. So probably a good place to stop and head into the weekend on this holiday weekend and all as well too. What do you say?
Yeah, it sounds good. We will be back on Tuesday.
All right, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you'd like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button up right navigational bar for $25 for one calendar year. You can have an ad-free version of the site. That's been very popular as well, too. Alex, you're all vaccinated up. I hope that second shot hits you well. And let's see. In the meantime, we will be back on Tuesday, right? Tuesday. All right. So as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.